You're welcome to this morning Node.js backend development course. And in this course, we are going to be starting with the fundamentals and basics of what backend development is all about. And I want you to pay attention. I will be trying my best to break down every concept by following a curriculum that you are seeing on the screen. So if you have any question, please make sure you drop them in the comments so I can see them and attend to them. So once again, my name is Favor and I'll be your instructor for this course. What we are going to be using for this course is this curriculum that I have prepared, and the curriculum link to this document will be leave in the comment section. Please make sure you check them, and you can as well follow the class, and there will be a daily video for it. So let's get started. We have the fundamentals, we have the core, intermediate, advanced, expert, and production. We are going to be dealing with all of that, but this morning we are starting with the foundation, and we are starting with the first lesson, which is how the web works and backend fundamentals. I want you to pay attention, and I'll try my best to explain all this for us. So before we even get started, what's backend development? How does the web even work? What are we doing? What's server? What's client? I know you have a lot of questions like that, and this morning we are going to be diving deep into them. So here the first task that we have right now, or the first lesson that we are going to be explaining, is DNS, TCP, HTTP, server response. I'm going to explain all this. Just pay attention to it. So right here I have my X card draw. I want you to explain it, and yeah, let me start with how the web works. How the web works. I don't know if you have ever come or in your mind it has ever come to that you are just wondering, how does the web work? How do you type something on your browser and you get the response? How does all this even work? How does it interact? That's what I want to explain right now. So first thing I want us to know is something called a browser. So what is a browser? An example of browser, we have Google Chrome, we have Microsoft Bing, we have an example of browser, we have Opera Mini, we have Mozilla, Firefox, we have Brave. So what is a browser? What does it mean? All these are example of a browser. What's a browser? What does it mean? So simple term, a browser is a tool that will make use of in accessing the internet. A browser is a tool that will make use of in accessing the internet. So we have the internet over here. So here in my browser, I come over and I want to try to draw this better. I'm not too good with drawing, so permit me. So yeah, I come over here, I open my browser on my phone. It can be on your device, on your laptop, your computer. While opening your browser, you search for google.com. You type it just like this, google.com, and you press enter. So I'm able to get this, but let me explain to you what is happening under the hood, which I believe that's what if I explain it and you get it, you'll be able to understand how the whole web work. So the first thing that happened is, let me come here. So the first thing that happened is after typing google.com, first thing that happened is there is a DNS checkup. So what does this DNS checkup mean? So in case you don't know, DNS mean domain name system. DNS, trying to check domain name system. Good. So domain name system, when you type google.com, one thing you need to understand is that the computer does not really understand this google.com. What the computer understands is a concept called IP. In this place, we have a concept called IP, Internet Protocol. So that's what the computer understands. IP example, IP address example. Let me copy this. So this is an example of IP address right here. I hope you are getting this. So what this means is that by the time you type google.com, this when you type google.com, this google.com is converted into something like this, making use of DNS. So what really happens is that every domain name, right? Every domain name, google.com, apple.com, pistag.com, stripe.com, all of them have something called the IP address, right? Every one of them, they have different IP address. Now, when you're trying to connect to it, you don't just connect with it with this. After typing this try to find where this is located and try to pull up the IP address. So after pulling up the IP address, with this IP address, it continues into the next one, which is called the TCP. I've forgotten the acronym for TCP. TCP is Transfer Transmission Protocol. I want to get everything right. That's why I went out to check the full acronym. So after typing on google.com, your domain name system, right, check up that google.com and pull up the IP address. Every domain name has an IP address, right? After the IP address, there is the next concept called TCP, but I won't be able to explain TCP better if I didn't explain this fourth concept, which is going to be called, let me call it server. So here in your browser, we can call it client. right? And over here we have let's say server. Here we call it client, and over here we have a server. So after the DNS checkup, this guy aim is going to this place, but for a connection to be established or for a communication to be established, that's where this guy in this place, is needed. Transfer control protocol. It's more of someone that helps in establishing that connection, right? Before this connect to this, right, they have to be oh, I'm trying to connect to that thing. Is it alive? I don't know if you have ever been to some website and it's dead. So the TCP help us like confirm, is he alive? If he's not alive, oh, this thing is broken, and you get to see it on your browser that this also thing is broken. But without the TCP, that communication won't be efficient. That communication won't really work. So every time you are trying to connect to a server from the client, which is your browser, for an example, it try to establish a connection between the server, making use of TCP. And TCP is more like, oh, you need this also thing. Let me first speak with the server first. If it's alive, if I can communicate or transfer things or transmit things. Yeah, I don't know if that's what TCP does. It says it says is a transfer layer protocol that ensures reliable order and error check delivery of data between application running on hosts in a network. It is responsible for establishing a connection between sender and receiver before data transmission begin using a process known as three-way handshaker. So that's what I'm trying to explain. It's a protocol that help us establish that connection. So that's TCP. So I have that, and the next concept I want to explain is called the HTTP requests. Let me change this to 5. I already brought it down there to be able to explain that. So the next thing I want to explain is HTTP request. So what's HTTP request? In simple term, what I would call an HTTP request is more like, okay, first, HTTP means hypertext transfer protocol. So what this does mostly is that it helps us when I'm trying to communicate to a server, for an example, right? There are different types of communication. There are different type of, oh, this server, this is what I need, this is what you get, and the like. So HTTP request kind of help us tell the server the type of communication or the type of things they are trying to communicate. I don't know if you get this, but that's literally what HTTP request means. Is it help us define the type of communication that we are having with the server. It helps us define the type of communication that we are having with the server. So we have different type of HTTP requests. we have um if we are going on with this course, I'm going to explain it more to you, but some example that we have for now, which the first, we have the get request, we have the post request, we have the delete request, and we have the example, the patch request. Right, I said type of communication, this HTTP request. And yeah, right, for example, in get request, you are trying to get something from the server. A post request, you are trying to get something from server. Right, yeah, for post, you are trying to send something to server. Here you're trying to delete something on server, and here for patch, you're trying to update something on server. So these are the type of what communications. There are more types of communication that you can practice making use of the HTTP request, but these are the basics one. We have the put, we have so many ones of them. So the next concept is server. So what is a server? What do you understand by a server? If you are here, I would have asked. Well, let me just try to break it down. Right. One thing I would say about server is server helps us. One thing that I need to understand about server is, because a lot of people try to get that concept that a server is a database. A lot of people say that. I don't know if you have ever thought of that, or you have heard people say that. A lot of people say that a server is a database. That's right, and that's not fully right. So what I will be saying this morning is a server is database, at least for this level, database plus logic. That's what I'll call server this morning. So I would say a server is a database plus logic. Right? Server is a place that help us to store data. That's a database, right? And how do we store this data? How do we communicate with this data? We make use of logics, we make use of functions, we make use of a lot of things. We make use of requests, make use of a lot of HTTP method, a lot of those things. And those are the things that a server is made of. So our goal for this course is that by the time you are done, you'll be able to create a database. You'll be able to write logic such a way that a database it having a relationship and interaction. How do you have an interaction with a database? How do you have an interaction back to a client? Those are the things that you'll be learning in this course. I hope you are following. Good. So that's a server. And I don't want to forget this. I don't want to forget this. I don't want to forget this. Versus, which is HTTP response. I would have skipped it, but I don't want to skip it or forget it. So there's a concept called HTTP response. If you are going on with this class, I'm going to get to that place and I'll explain it better to you in practical. But this morning, an HTTP response. Earlier, I told you that one of the way you communicate with the server is by making use of an HTTP request, by telling the server the type of communication you are trying to initiate, either get, post, delete, or patch. Right now, when you have tell a server this thing, right, and a server has get to done that thing, right, there is a response that is expected from the server. I don't know if you get. So I sent an HTTP request to I sent an HTTP request to the server. Right? I sent it over to the server. Now, I'm telling the server that I need this so thing. Help me to get it. Now, the server check through the database, making use of the logic that I have. Oh, where is this so materials? Where is this so information? And the server is able to see it. The server is expected to send me back an HTTP response, a form of response, for me to be assured that this so thing or so data is found or not. So that's what HTTP response is about. And when it comes to HTTP response, it comes with a message it comes with a status code. Now, whenever, for example, if you are on a website on some platforms and you get to see a button, for example, and you try to let me give you an example. Let me go to stripe.com. Now I click on sign in at Stripe. In case you don't know, Stripe is a financial service. Now this particular place, this is a client, right? This particular place, this is like what a user tend to interact with. This page, you can design it with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You can design it with React, Next.js. Those are the work of a front-end developer. Now, when a user enters this 1 2 3 4 5 6, right, and I try to click on sign in, so I've sent is something called an HTTP request to Stripe server, and Stripe server sent me back an HTTP response. Now the response that it sent back contained a message which states here that what incorrect email or password. So meaning that this account is likely not being found in the database. This account is currently not being found in the database, or my password or my email is incorrect. That's what I'm trying to explain here. That whenever there's an HTTP response, it comes with a message and a status code. Now, what's that status code? What's status code? Status code is just more like let me give you a simple explanation for now. We are still going to do practical of all this, but status code is more like sometimes a message might not be sent, but a status code is always being sent. Now that status code help us to understand better the type of response that is being sent. So we have the 100 status code, we have the 200, we have the 300, we have the 400, we have the 500. Now let me go to this. Let me go to at this place. Let me write something like this. Okay, let me go to valcell.com/ just a random thing. Now good. When I open this page does not exist. I just type a random thing. It's not maybe I'm going to their dashboard or something. Now when I type in this random thing, right, I type in this random thing, Versa is trying to tell me that, oh, this page does not exist, right? This page does not exist. And with that, I'm getting this 404. If you have been interacting more with websites, you'll be seeing you are likely to encounter this kind of thing. Now what that 404 means is that this page does not exist. 404 status code means so it says an HTTP not found error is a client side error response code indicating that a web server was reachable, but the specific page or resource requested by the user does not exist at the given URL. So that's what that Vercel page is helping me to understand, that oh, this also thing does not exist. This also page they are looking for does not exist. So when this response is going to be sent, and I told you that it contains the status code, it might, when the status code is something like 200, is mostly when it's something like 200 is mostly good. When it's something like 200, it's mostly, oh, this response is good. Then it's mostly like 400, when it's mostly like 400 can be something from the client. Maybe something from the client can be authentication and so many other stuffs. When it's mostly 500 means that, oh, 500 means that, oh, this particular error is coming from the server or backend. 300, forgotten what that means. 100, forgotten what that means. We'll be checking that later. So this is it. This is how the web work. When I type in my Google, let me reiterate. When I type in my google.com, right, first thing is that the DNS system pick it up. After picking it up, it tried to figure out the IP address, because this is what you get to interact with. This is what the computer gets to understand. This is what you get to interact with, but this is what the computer gets to understand. You won't find it so easier to be cramming IP address up and down, right? That's the work of the domain name system. Is it domain name system, DNS, or server? Okay, that's the work of the domain name system. It help us look for that domain name and pull out the IP address. You don't need to get worried about all of that. All of this is happening under the hood. But as a backend developer, you are expected to know this. You're expected to know what's under the hood. That's your work. So after pulling this out, a TCP is initiated, right? Now, what's a TCP? TCP is just uh, a way in which the client, which is for example a browser, try to communicate with a server. So the next thing is that after that, an HTTP request is sent from the client, which for example a browser. Now, whenever the HTTP is being sent, there are different type of requests that can be sent, which I explain in this place. You can send a GET request, a POST request, a DELETE request, and a PATCH request. Now, when you send the request goes to the server. And I explained to you that server is beyond just database. Server contains logic. Server contains a lot of things. But for now, just know that two things: server contains authentication, a lot of those things. But for now, know these two things: it contains the database and it contains the logic. Please, I don't want you to get it mixed up. Server is also server or backend. When I say this, I'm literally saying the same thing. And for clients, when I say this, client or front end, I'm literally saying the same thing as well. So when the backend contains the database and the logic, right? And whenever I sent a request, the logic helps me to like check the database, interact with the database, trying to find something or trying to perform an action, and with that a response is being sent back. And I told you that response contain two things, or it can contain a lot of things, but initially two things. It contains a message and it will also contain a status code. A message is an example of this that you get to see the other time. It's trying to, what the user will understand in this place is literally this message. They won't understand the back end of it. This is what the user will understand. This was the user will try to interact with. Where I'm entering an incorrect details in this place. So that's for the message. And we have for the status comes with sometimes when a message is not being included, the status is a must, because it helps it so much importance to a response, right? So that I get to know the type of response that HTTP response is. Without that response, I might not be able to do things well, or might not be able to communicate well, right? So that's why the status code is there. By the time we move on with this class, we are going to be doing more practical things with the HTTP request and response. And before we move on, so this HTTP, we have it kind of two. Let me explain the first one and the second one. So we have the normal HTTP, and we have the normal one, HTTP, and we have the second, which is what? HTTPS. Now, if you look at this place, you will see that I'm having HTTPS. If you look at this place, you will see that I'm having HTTPS. So this HTTP, as I said, it's a form. This HTTP, as I said, it helps us, communicate with the server. right? We have the get. So the difference between this HTTP and the HTTPS is that when you are trying to communicate with a server with this, the communication is not fully secure. Is not fully secure, right? But if you are trying to communicate with the server with this, the communication is fully secure. The communication is fully secure. Now, this HTTP, the difference between this is still the same. This is still more of HTTP plus TLS. I've forgotten the acronym. Let me check the acronym for this. TLS. So TLS means transport layer security, right? Transport layer security. So what that means is that it's still HTTP way of communicating, but it also include this security layer on it, in which the data being sent to the server is secured, and the response being gotten from the server is also what secured. So that's what HTTPS mean. Once again, the client, which is the browser, can also be what's called the front end. This place is a front end. Your mobile apps, if you open your banks on your mobile phone, your phone is more like a client trying to make a request to the server, and your server is also what the backend containing the database and the logic. So let's move on. So when I type onto this, with the explanation that I've made, you get to know that when I type onto this check up the domain name system. The domain name system connect with what the TCP to initiate a connection between the server, right? After that, an HTTP request is made to Google server requesting for this page. After that, this page is being searched in their database and through the logic, and a response is gotten. Now, the response contains a message, status code, and the response, I forgot to mention, this also is a response. This page is a response. That's why the other time I said, let me add it here. It can be an HTML page. It also contain an HTML page, or we can have a JSON. So we have so many things that comes with a response. So this page is more like an HTML page that is being sent back as an HTTP response from Google server, and is being represented in your browser. I hope you get. So good. The next thing I want to go to is explain the difference between REST, GraphQL, gRPC at a high level. We are not going to go for high level now. Let's start with the lower level. So we have the first one, which is REST. We have the first one, which is more like type of, okay, let me just put it for now, REST. We have the REST have the REST, we have the GraphQL, GraphQL, and we have the about the gRPC. So this place, I mentioned something in this place. I said logic. Now this place can also be called the API. Logic or API. So what this API does is let me bring it here so that so that it doesn't go far. So what this API does is, in a simple form, it's the one that helps us to I don't want to explain it now, but let me just give you a tip. API help us connect to the backend or server, right? API help us, that's application programming interface. It help us to connect to, I didn't list it in this place, but it help us to connect to the server, right? You as a backend developer, you are going to be developing or designing a lot of APIs that helps the front end or the client side to connect to the server, which is the backend, right? That's also part of the logic stuff in this place. We are going to go into practical depth of this. Then we start to go into those practical depths, right? You are going to understand more. But for now, the basics knowledge that you need to know is this API in this place help us to connect to this server. Now, who designed or who developed the API, right? This API is more like how big this thing is, this database and logic, right? For me to be able to now connect into this place, this API helps me in doing that. I'll explain more when we get to that class. But in this place, this is what this place is really all about. This concept, we are trying to explain the types of APIs. So we have the first one, which is the REST. We have the second, which is the GraphQL. We have the third one, which is the gRPC. We have a lot of them, but the REST is one thing I would say about REST is that REST is, when you are designing or developing a REST, we call it REST or RESTful API. One thing you get to see, or one thing you get to notice, is that it has a lot of mouth, it has a lot of points to connect, it has a lot of it has, let's say that this is the backend, this is the server. REST has a lot of, and this is the let's say this is the server. In this place, this is the server, and this is the, and I'm trying to connect to, and this is the this is the front end, which is the client, and this is the front end or client, right? Now this server, for this client to be able to connect to this server, right, for this client to be able to connect to this server, there's a lot of ways for it to be able to like connect. That's what like this REST is about. It helps us build a lot of ways in which we can connect to the server. So when we are building a RESTful API, it gives us this many ways in which we can what connect. Let me try to find the definition. Restful RESTful API. Yeah, it says it's um I'm trying to um I'm trying to I didn't want to open any link because of our time, but that's basically what REST is about. We are designing a REST API. It gives us a lot of ways in which we can, you know, connect to the server. Now, the second one is called the GraphQL. GraphQL, we are designing a GraphQL API, right? The difference between a RESTful and a GraphQL API is that a GraphQL API just gives us one way to for this front end to connect to the server. Just one way. So with that one API, I'll be able to interact with the server. I'll be able to state what I want. The server will be able to give me what I need with just one API or one way to connect with the server. So that's what GraphQL is about. And the third one, which is gRPC. gRPC, we are going to get to that class, but there is a concept called, for example, something called microservice. Or let me start with this, that gRPC for now, and a simple explanation for it is just a way that the APIs can connect to APIs. Now, this server, right, inside it there can be many, right? Now, if I want this guy to connect to this API inside it, right, one of the way that I can do that like in a simple way is by making use of this gRPC. Now, I want to check the full acronym of the gRPC. gRPC, yeah, gRPC full full acronym. So we are having remote procedure call. So it's developed by Google for enabling effective communication in a distributed system. It is particularly well suited for microservice architecture and real-time application to its use of protocols buffers for serialization and HTTP2 as the transfer protocol. So what this does is it helps us. Let's say that in our servers we have different servers. Now we have not even gotten to front end. So gRPC, when we are trying to communicate between servers, right, one of the easiest and fastest ways that we can apply or make use of is by making use of gRPC. That's general that's remote procedure call. So when we get to microservice class, that's when we are trying to build different system in our server. We are going to be making use of gRPC in that class. So if you're in an interview or you're in a place and people mention that, oh, how in what ways can you even, or if you develop a microservice or you develop something that the servers needed to communicate with each other in what way are you going to design it, in what way are you going to initiate communication between them. You can make use of the grpc, which is what remote protocol control, remote procedure call, sorry, remote procedure call. So that's where we are going to stop for this morning. So here we have something called stateless protocol. I didn't mention this, but let me explain it last before we end the class. What does stateless protocol mean? What does stateless protocol mean? So I have stateless protocol. So I have my backend, and I'm trying to, and I have my front end or client. Front end, you can call it front end or you can call it the client, right? And it's trying to communicate to this place. I'm trying to send an HTTP request from the client to the backend, and the backend or server is trying to send me an HTTP response back. Now, this type of communication, I'm trying to explain stateless protocol, right? What it means is, I'm trying to remember. There are things that I know, but what I would say about it is that it's a type of communication in which, let's say that there's Mr. E in this place and there's Mr. B in this place. If Mr. E try to communicate with Mr. B, right? Now, Mr. A did not, by the time Mr. A is sending another type of communication or request, Mr. A doesn't remember the previous type of communication that is sent or the previous message it sent. Now, why does this type of thing happen? One of the reasons that it happens is that for security. Now, when you send a request to a server, right, and you send that request again, right? Let's say I send the first one and I sent the second one again. One thing the server does is that the server does not really know you that, oh, computer A is the one that sent this previous request, right? Computer A is the one that still sent it again. One of the way that the server knows is by using use of, for example, to make use of something called token, for the server to be able to recognize that this particular 30 request has been sent from this particular client or from this particular place. We can make use of token, we can make use of IP address to be able to track that this type of request or this so request has been sent by this so client or this so front end person or device. So that's what stateless protocol means. Stateless protocol is that type of communication that happens where the server does not really knows you. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me try to find it here. Stateless protocol. So here it says that a stateless protocol is a type of network communication protocol where each request from a client to a server is treated as an independent transaction, unrelated to any previous request. The server, please take note of this, please. It says that the server does not store section information or client state between requests, making the design simpler and more resource efficient. So when the
this communication is happening. The server didn't really store that, oh, this also request, this also request of a data of a resources is made by this also person. It's not really storing it. So by the time we go on with this class, I will be explaining more of these things to you. Please, if you have any question, make sure you drop them in the comment section. And uh, I'm going to also be dropping this curriculum. The link I'll be dropping into you to in the comment section or the description as well. So make sure we still have a lot of class. Tomorrow we are going to be continuing with Node.js runtime and the event loop. So I know somebody will be like, today we didn't write much of code. Yeah, please. Today we are not writing much of code. Tomorrow we are going to be starting with some code, and you are welcome once again to your backend development journey. We still have a lot of things we want to do. A lot of see. We have a lot of things we are going to. I think our last topic is documentation. We have this microservice that I explained the other time. This GraphQL. Those are the last things that we are going to touch. Security, monitoring, observability. We have CI/CD pipelines. We have Docker and containerization, performance. We have so many things we are going to be touching. Please just follow this class. Thank you.